Hi friends, I'm Anna Helman. I'm glad you're here today. I have some really fun cards today that I want to share with you using a new medium on our cards, we'll say, which is fabric. Okay, now some of you do all the crafts. You have the fabric, you have the paper, you have all the things. Some of you don't. But I've been thinking about it for a while. I wanted to try using some fabric on some cards. So this idea was in the back of my mind and I got out some supplies and started working on them. This turned out to be so much more fun than I would have expected. I love the way the cards turned out. So I'm excited to share that with you, and I hope you stick around for the end for a little bit of encouragement. As we go through this, I'm going to share 6 different cards with you that I've created with fabric, and they use different techniques. I want to get you thinking about different ways you could use fabric on your cards. So I'll share all these different techniques. And as we go through here, I'm going to share some tips with you as far as how to work with the fabric. If cutting the fabric, stamping on the fabric, doing these different things, I'll share some tips that will hopefully help you. So this very first one is just showing how you can use fabric as a background for your cards. Now you can see here, this is a specialty fabric. I was using lace here, but I thought that would just be so pretty. And I really like how it turned out over top of that glimmer paper. Now this is a different technique that I did stamp this and die cut this magnolia out to use on the front. We'll talk about those techniques here in a minute. But let's talk about cutting fabric first. A couple of tips for cutting fabric. First, use the best scissors you have. If you have fabric scissors, get those out. If you don't have fabric scissors, when you are trying to cut straight lines, I actually had the best luck with, if you have any kind of long arm trimmer like this, a small one, a big one, anything, that makes it easier if you don't have the best scissors ever. Now, friends, we don't need to go buy all the fabric and the fabric scissors and all these things to put some fabric on our cards, right? And I did want to mention that there are, so for most of what I'm doing here, scraps of fabric are big enough. So let's say you want to add some scraps of fabric to your collection, so you can do some of this if you don't already have any fabric. Maybe you know a friend who sews. Maybe there are like sewing clubs. There's all kinds of there's people who have lots of scraps. If you can connect with them, maybe they could share some with you. You can get fabric at thrift stores. And I did find out here recently, you can actually have the fabric stores, at least the one I was at here recently, they would cut me as small as a 4-inch strip of the fabric that I wanted to purchase. So anyway, this is fun. Keep in mind, you can find scraps and some things like that that you could use on them if you want to. Okay, for my second card, I'll mention this. I made these with the Magnolia Mood Stamp and Die set. I have been using this a lot. You've probably seen it several times from me already. So for this one, I just took that large magnolia stamp, stamped it several times on the background. And here is something you can do if you don't have great scissors. You can tear fabric in a lot of cases. I actually tore the lace here on the top and the bottom. On the sides, I had trimmed it straight, but the top and the bottom, I tore that. You can tear fabric in a lot of cases, and I decided to go with the frayed look, which I love because just looking at it, you may not really even realize this was fabric until you touch it probably, but I love that frayed look. It kind of draws some attention to the fact that it's fabric. So for this one, I just stamped all across that background, add a little tag and some sequins. Pretty easy, right? Here are a couple of tips for if you're stamping on fabric. 1, press hard. Press hard. You may want to choose a darker color of ink than you would have normally because not all of that ink is going to transfer to the fabric. So you may want to choose a dark color of ink, press hard. You may want to use a stamping platform so that you can press extra hard and not feel like you're going to wiggle it and mess it up. And the other thing is you may want to use, here's my Stampin' Pierce mat. I love this thing. Just a foam pad that you can put under it while you're stamping. And that little bit of cushion is going to help more of the ink transfer onto the fabric that way. Okay, card number 3. On this one, I just used one of my basic shape dies to cut out this piece in the background. So very simple, but let's say you don't have great fabric scissors, but you do have dies in your collection, use your dies. You don't have to have great scissors. So I cut that shape. This one and the next card I made with a bundle called Cheerful Daisies, which I really like, these basic flowers. So I cut 2 of the die cuts, if you can see the orange one in the background and then the glimmer paper on top. Oh, this greeting. This is one of my favorite stamp sets at the moment. I love this Courage and Faith stamp set. And I just added that simple greeting and a couple sequins. Let's see. Die cutting. Oh, tips for die cutting. Let's talk about that. So let's look at this. I'll just show you what I did here. Now, next we're going to talk about some ideas for how to adhere the fabric to your cards, how to attach it, because I mean, glue probably is not the best option, right? So I had to think a little bit about how I was going to attach them. And let's talk about die cutting. Next, we'll talk about adhering, but we're going to look at one adhesive tip here. So here's my fabric, just a little piece. And this is what I did for the ones that I die cut. Or this is what I found was easiest. I didn't do this for all of the ones that I die cut, but in my opinion, this was the best option. So these are called adhesive sheets. And what it is a thin layer of adhesive between 2 layers of paper backing. So I just peeled off the one layer that had the adhesive on it. I stuck it onto the back of my fabric. So what this is now is once I die cut this out, it is going to have the adhesive already on my fabric, and this one's trying not to stick, but basically that adhesive is going to be on that fabric and ready to adhere. So for this next one here, I'll give you a sneak peek. Like, this was a little bit detailed. That's fabric. So it was already ready for me to stick on like a sticker. Okay, so you don't have to put the adhesive sheets on the back if you decide a different way of adhering is better. But here's what I suggest for die cutting. There's a really long way around to get back to my tips for die cutting. I really suggest putting a layer of cardstock underneath your fabric and then put your die cut on top and then put this between your clear plates like you normally would. Sometimes my dies cut pretty well through the fabric without the cardstock, but I found that this really helped make it go a lot better. And the specialty fabrics, like the thin fabrics, they were a little bit harder to cut. So you can play around and see what works for you. But let's move on to this next card that I just showed you. Again, I made this with the Cheerful Daisies set, and I used some like shimmery white fabric on this. Now, I would have never, ever, ever gotten this adhered well without those adhesive sheets that I just showed you. The fabric I'm using here appears to not be sticking very well, so I don't know. It is also, I think it'll still work, but with this fabric, those adhesive sheets worked really well. So adhering, besides the adhesive sheets, some other ideas for things you can try. I did use some tape, did just use some regular tape, my Seal or the Seal Plus. You could try glue sticks, tear and tape. If you know what tear and tape is, I believe that would be a really good option. Here is some tear and tape. Love my tear and tape. And let's see. Oh, if you are a fabric person, do you know what Wonder Under is? I had received some cards from somebody several years back. They'd taken their fabric with the Wonder Under on the back and they ironed it onto their card, and that adhered it really well as well. So that is an option if you have some of that in your collection. Okay, next card and technique. For this one, it is to stamp on your fabric and then die cut it out. So if you look closely, this is the part I stamped and die cut. You see that I have 2 colors on that magnolia. Now that magnolia is only one stamp. So what I did, I took my markers and I colored onto the floral part with, I believe it was Blackberry Bliss, probably, with my Blackberry Bliss marker. And then I took a green marker, Granny Apple Green, I believe, colored the leaves on the stamp. So I had 2 colors of ink on my stamp. Then I stamped it onto this fabric. Again, I stamped hard, used that foam pierce mat, and it is still subtle, but you can definitely see. But I really liked how this turned out. I think that is all for that one, and I have one more. This one I love. This is definitely one of my favorites here. So what I did for this one, I used my alcohol markers, my Blends alcohol markers. So I wanted to stamp the image onto this fabric, and I used my Memento black ink. If you're using alcohol markers, you need to use that Memento ink so the color doesn't bleed. Stamped it with that Memento black. Then I brought in my alcohol markers and just colored it in. I did get a little bit of excess bleeding here. What I learned was after I put one color on, I need to let it dry before I add my next color. Here I had added that light pink, and then I came back in with the darker colors before the light pink had dried and it bled some. So if you're mixing colors, you may want to wait till the first color dries before you move on to the next one. And then I did this with that Courage and Faith stamp set again. If you are stamping greetings, I highly suggest that you do that on a stamping platform. What I did all the coloring for this, and I attached this piece of fabric to my card so that I could insert this into my stamping platform and stamp the greeting several times in the same place. I think I stamped this 3 or 4 times to get the color that dark. So another tip to hopefully help, but I thought this was so fun. Like I said, when I got started, I wasn't really expecting anything special. I was expecting a normal day in my craft room, which is always good. But as I started to work with these and started to see them come together as I got done, I was just so excited because I loved how they turned out. So, okay, let's chat about life for a second. So let's see if I can offer you any encouragement today. And the question I will lead off with is, who can you love today? And I'm going to follow that up with, think about the people in your life that really make life hard. Think about those people who have caused you lots of hurt, maybe taken advantage of you. There's all kinds of situations that can really be hard for us, cause a lot of hurt, and cause us to not act like our best selves, right? So I have one of these situations in my life, and typically, I don't know if you're like me, I imagine a lot of people handle things the same way I do. I really try to be as nice as possible, but in general, I will try to handle things with silence rather than handling things with kindness. Is that possible? Are you with me? I don't want to be mean and I don't want to be rude. I don't like to get in disagreements. I avoid drama like it is my job. Life is better that way. But oftentimes I choose silence, which may not come across as kindness. So one of these situations here not too long ago, it's not a good situation. I'm not going to get into the details. Not a good situation. Like, a person's safety is at risk, and like, but I can't do anything about it. So I was praying. I decided to pray for this particular person. And so try this. If you haven't, try this. So I'm praying and I'm just like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to handle this situation? The situation is bad. What am I supposed to do? And I feel like the Lord spoke to me and said, be nice. Be nice. Okay, that's when I know I'm not talking to myself in my head, because be nice would not have come to myself. Okay, so I tried to start applying this, and like, in small, subtle ways, start being nice instead of just silent. And, you know, it is just amazing what can happen when we start to be better people in our relationships. And I'm not going to say that this is fixed by any means, but the environment, the word isn't coming to me that I'm looking for, but the general level of tension has definitely gone down, and some of that niceness has been returned to me. So anyway, who can you love today? Who can you pray for? And then maybe the Lord will speak to you and give you some guidance on how to handle one or more of these situations that are so difficult and so hard and so painful. That's what I have today, friends. Thanks for being here. I hope you'll be back again next time when I'll be here helping you to handmake with love.